you guys give a big, warm round of applause to the writer.
So fun for me because I am so baked, and I've always wanted to watch this movie with an audience out here. We went to see it in Toronto. It was amazing. We watched it with real live Canadians. Tonight we'll watch it here in town. Now this is cool for me because I drive past this theater all the time. I've lived out in Los Angeles now. I've been coming out here since Clerks since like 20 years, but I've been living out here for 12 years. And as many times as I've driven past this theater, I've never once been in this theater. This theater has never shown anything I've ever done. It always occurred to me as the cool theater, man. Like if the theater had a leather jacket, that's what this place would be. So I remember when Kill Bill was playing, like a pussy wagon was parked out front, and I was just like, I never make anything cool enough to play at a fucking theater. Tonight I did, so I'm really tonight is insanely special because this is probably the first time I've ever had my whole cast together since we were making a movie, and I'm going to introduce those cats in a sec. But first, just a brief story on the history of this flick. This flick was made possible by a bunch of people who listened to a podcast and took a few seconds, bless you, out of their day to hashtag Walrus Yes, man. So really it's the story of just patting a stranger on the back. Me and my friend Scott Mosher recorded a podcast called Podcast. We were sitting around talking about the story we read online. Came from Gumtree.uk, a website that deals with living arrangements over in England. And it was offering a room for rent in exchange for all you had to do was dress up like a walrus for 2 hours a day. And you couldn't make human noises. You could only make walrus noises, which the ad reminded you were available on the internet. And the man would throw you fish and crabs. That was your own responsibility. Catch the fish and crabs that he would throw to you. So we had a blast. Me and my friend Scott Miller who do this podcast. We had a blast with this. We didn't know whether it was real or not. Seemed real sincere, or real fucking nuts. So we started talking about dissecting it, making up little scenes. Same bullshit we do every episode of this podcast. 258 episodes prior to that. No fucking difference. But there was this moment that snapped in my brain, and I only paid attention, man, because it only happened one other time in my life. When I was a kid, I would sit around, and I loved comedy so much and stuff. But whenever I watched comedy, I didn't see people on the screen that I necessarily related to. As much as I loved Animal House, the Deltas were not dudes I could hang with. I couldn't drink that much Jack Daniels, you know? So for me, it's like, even though I love comedy, I never saw like my world represented up on the screen. Never saw me and my friends, not us specifically, but just the kind of losers that sit around and talk about movies and pussy and Star Wars and stuff. So I dreamed of like seeing that up on the screen. I'm like, how come nobody makes movies about like me and my friends, the kind of characters we are and shit? And one day I had this like revelation where I was like, Kevin, nobody gives a fucking shit about you and your friends, man. Nobody is ever gonna make a movie about you and your friends unless it's you. And so I was like, all right, fuck it. I did it, and it was Clerks, and it changed my life. So cut to like 20 years later, we're sitting on, I'm not doing that for applause, but I will say Clerks a lot, trust me. Cut to 20 years later, man, and we're sitting on that podcast. You can actually hear it on the recording. And I'm getting charged up about this fake like story that we're building. And you can almost hear me get so like upset, like, why won't someone make this fucking movie about a guy who makes another guy a walrus? Like, where are the brave filmmakers? And I had the same snap that I'd had 20 years earlier, man, which was just like, Kevin, nobody is ever gonna make this stupid fucking walrus movie unless it's you. And so I kind of went forward with it. And so I said at the end of the podcast, if you think it's a cool idea, hashtag on Twitter Walrus Yes. And the next day, there was a sea of Walrus Yes, pun intended, just thousands upon thousands of Walrus Yes. One Walrus No, the very first one I saw, there's probably more by now, but the only one I ever saw said, I'm only voting no to support the democratic process. So right then and there, I was like, I got the support of the internet. Now, a lot of smart people are like, fuck that, why do you want the support of the internet? Because the support of the internet is kind of like when you're drunk at a party and you're like, I'm gonna take my fucking dick out. And your friends have a camera and they're like, do it. As soon as you don't understand watch him destroy his career a second time. You know? So either way, it was kind of win-win. But a bunch of people stopped and took a second or two to go on Twitter and hashtag Walrus fucking yes. And that made all the difference. I was sitting there in my room waiting for a phone call from the Weinsteins because I wanted to desperately make Clerks 3 and stuff. So I'm sitting there waiting yet again, suddenly in my career for the first time in years, because for the last few years all I've been doing is podcasts and just kind of doing what I want. But there I was at the mercy of another gatekeeper, and that's fine. I'm asking for millions of dollars. I understand. Sometimes you have to sit there and wait. But after years of being a podcaster, the immediacy of like, let's put on a show. You just sit down and fucking go. And it's not like this art form where you're like, I need to express myself. Give me $20 million and Ben Affleck. You know, you just fucking tell a story and go fucking crazy. So at the end of the day, I was like, fuck it, let's try for it. Let's push it, man. Let's give it a shot. The people that hashtag Walrus yes made an absolute difference. But the only reason I'm telling you this story, man, is because none of this fucking happens unless some dude wakes up in Brighton, England one morning and says, I'm gonna write some bullshit about a walrus, and sits down to the internet and writes that fake ad. The ad that we did that episode about, it was a hoax. It wasn't real. There was no old man with a walrus fetish. But it was charming as fuck, and I was attached to the idea, and I started hearing from people online going, oh, I know the person that wrote that ad. I was like, you know the old man? He's like, not an old man. He's a dude in Brighton. His name's Chris Parkinson. And so through the magic of the internet, the same way I heard about the story, the same way we disseminated the podcast, got a vote back from people saying, go make that movie. Through the internet, they introduced me to the man that literally changed my life. And that dude got up on the other side of the world, said, ugh, Walrus. And the other side of the world, I was like, Walrus. And because of that, no fucking lie, I made, but I'm not saying you will all consider it the same way. This is just my personal opinion. I made what I feel is like the best fucking movie I ever made, man. And it came from a marriage of a bunch of things, but it starts with that spark. You never know where a fucking great idea, or even a stupid idea, is gonna come from, man. But thank God that guy got up and did that. And that person is here tonight. The godfather of this picture, without whom none of this shit happens, man, because it's true. If this dude had said horse, it's a guy who wants you to come work and live in his house, but you have to dress up like a horse, people would be like, oh, fuck that, that's stupid. Walrus captures the imagination, man. Usually like, how does that suit even work and stuff like that? And he captured my imagination. Without the dude, we wouldn't be here tonight. And he's here from Brighton, England. Give it up for Chris Parkinson. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you something. It's weird, and it gets weirder and weirder and stuff. And just when you're like, hey, it'll never get weirder, it then gets just a little bit fucking weirder. And the reason this all worked is this bullshit, stupid idea. It was based on a goofy podcast. Me and my friend just blazed laughing about stupid shit. And then 6 months after that podcast dropped, because I got a little support from a bunch of people on Walrus Yes, I was standing on a set. Looking at Justin Long going, action, and he was dressed like a walrus going, So in 6 months of pushing Lindsay, this was not something that I was like, I'm gonna die trying to make this movie. That's not the stoner mentality. The stoner mentality is like, let's see how far we get today. You know, every day I just saw how far we could get, and we wound up making a real movie. But the kids responsible for making this real, because it's just goofy words on a page. But I had a cast of actors that came to play in this movie, played it so seriously, you'd think they were in fucking Argo or something like that. So I always like to shout them out because it was a brave decision to say yes to this movie at all, man. Justin's agent at the time was like, don't do this. You're already the Apple guy, don't be the Walrus guy. And Justin went for it. Justin was like, it scared me, but I want to the shit that scares me is the stuff I should be tackling first. And the idea of not being able to speak for half the movie I thought was an interesting challenge. Could I act through it? And boom, he jumped in. And that's something he'll wear around him for the rest of his life, like fucking herpes. He'll be like, you're a walrus. But it was such a great decision. And I'm so glad he fucking did it. But right next to him, the guy that towers over this movie, the man for whom this movie exists, because a few years ago I made this movie called Red State that he was in. And I toured the movie around the world, but I had to do it so loudly in order to kind of keep marketing costs down that I obfuscated this man's amazing performance in the movie, and he never got the attention he was due. So when I was sitting there going, what would this Walrus movie be about? I said, what would make me want to go back to a movie set? Because I haven't made a movie in like 3 years. It was a real first world problem. I was like, what would take me back to a movie set? But the first thing that popped into my mind was like, one of my favorite things in the world was Michael Parks on Red State. Watching this acting Yoda just like fucking drop science, and he knows more about performance than most will, well, he's forgotten more about performance than most will ever know. Being on set with him, watching him act, I'm a real actor freak. I love watching actors work. I don't like to hang out with him, but I love him in movies and stuff. So I love this guy's work to death. And so I sat there going, all right, maybe the guy, the old man in the movie, could be Michael Parks. And then I could sit on a set with Michael Parks and watch him say batshit things and try to shine a light back on him that I didn't shine on Red State. And so in doing so, man, we put together this wild flick that we couldn't have made without the other two cats. Of course, we're talking about Genesis Rodriguez and Haley Joel Osment. All these people are in the house tonight, man. Just stand up real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Long, Michael Parks, Haley Joel Osment. And the moral of this whole story, ladies and gentlemen, is don't fucking wait, man. There was a moment where I was like, this sounds like a good idea, and just because I'm a human being, another voice came in right behind it and be like, what, are you fucking stupid? Like, this is, you did cop out, move on. You know, something like to attack the idea before I let it breathe life into it and stuff. And I kind of I held on to it because there was something weird about it. Just the fact that it was a walrus and not anything else really captured my imagination, and it got me to work with these fine people. It got me to work with this amazing actor, Bila Point, who's in the movie. It got me some of the best fucking reviews of my career, man. And it's got, I mean, I know they say in life, like somebody does something here and then it has a ripple effect across the world or whatever. They call it the butterfly effect. Bullshit. Now I call it the walrus effect, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight you're going to see the results of the walrus effect, man. Thank you to Demarest for financing this movie. Thank you so much to David Greathouse. Thank you so much to Shannon McIntyre. Thank you so much to the good folks at A24 when I was like, I'm going to make this Walrus movie. They were the first people I thought of because they took Spring Breakers out there, man, and introduced it to a bunch of people that wouldn't have found it otherwise. So I was like, the only people will ever understand this Walrus is A24. And they did amazing things without spending fucking money. It's crazy. One day they called me up and they were like, how would you feel if we branded a strain of weed to your movie? And I was like, I'm going to get smoked tusk. Fucking A. And now you can go to Buds and Roses and get smoked. It's not like a Happy Meal tie-in, but it's been something, you know? So they've been amazing with the movie. They're so smart and so wonderful and stuff like that. I thank, as I said, the cast. I thank anyone who ever said Walrus yes online or throughout the course of the year. Scott Mosier for being there and fucking saying a bunch of things that really made me laugh. I thank my kid for being in it and stuff. That was fun. But naturally, I gotta thank the person without him. I'm like, A, I don't get laid. But B, this wouldn't have moved forward. The first 15 pages of that script that I wrote, I handed to my wife Jen, and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, what is this? And I said, I don't know, it's something I'm working on. Instead of waiting for the phone to ring, Bob Weinstein saying you can make Clerks 3, instead of waiting for a gatekeeper to say, yeah, I'm thinking about making a movie, and I think it might be this. And she's like, are you serious with this shit? And I said, yeah. She goes, finish it, I want to read it. And that was the pat on the back I needed, man. The most important person in the world to me is my wife. I'm ever trying to impress her. And she's not really a fan of the Jay and Silent Bob stuff. So when I stepped out there with Walrus, I was so fucking scared that she was going to be like, don't waste your fucking time. But instead, she was like, skate, motherfucker, you're on to something. So Jenny, without you, I wouldn't have fucking done it. So thank you so much.